The Honourable Member Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. New Zealand First does support the motion, and we think there are good grounds for a reconsideration of Part 1 of the bill. And I agree with the Honourable Jerry Brownlee that there has in fact been a very long debate. But in fact there has been a very great amount to debate on this bill. And I, for one, didn't get a full opportunity to discuss all of the matters that I would have wished to debate, even during the debate that we've had. And it did take quite a long period to get through it as far as it's gone. But there remain a lot of issues that are undebated. So I don't accept the argument to begin with that the fact that there has already been a long debate necessarily means that all the issues that members wish to debate have in fact been debated. So that's a very important consideration for us. But there are some good reasons, as I've said, for reconsidering Part 1. And the most important one of these is uncertainty. And, Mr Speaker, we've heard the Prime Minister today answer some very good questions, I felt, about Part 1 of the bill. And that only resulted, I believe, in even more confusion and even more uncertainty than before those questions were asked and answered. And having regard to what the Prime Minister said, and then rereading the sections that were referred to, both by those who have been asking the questions.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
I know you're a stickler for parliamentary procedure, particularly good behaviour for members. It's very good behaviour for members to stick to standing orders. And the member speaking is straying well wide of 1735. It may not extend to the principles or objects or provision of the bill itself, which the member is now doing. It is simply confined to the subject matter of the motion. In other words, the idea, should we or should we not open Parliament up? It is deliberately restrictive, no question about that, because when these standing orders were written, as you yourself were probably well aware, there was a desire to terminate some of these interminable debates that Parliament had seen before on these sorts of motions.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Member Dennis
Speaking to the point of order, I made it very clear during what I was saying that the reason why we should be considering this motion is because of the uncertainty around Part 1, specifically relating to the answers and questions in the House today. It's got nothing to do with the substance of those things. It's got to do with whether there is a need for further debate because of the uncertainty that's been generated by what has been said by the Prime Minister today and also at other times. It's got to do with that, not the substance of these sections themselves.
Well, can I just advise the member? The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
You probably don't need a lot of assistance here, because the width of this debate, I think, was pretty well established during the contribution of the Honourable Jerry Brownlee. And he, sir, as you I'm sure are aware, substantially broadened away from what would otherwise have been considered appropriate. And sir, as you are aware, once a debate has been broadened, then members are allowed to respond to, as long as they don't get further outside, they are allowed to respond to and stay within the then broadened debate. And sir, while as I moved the debate, I worked quite hard to stay narrow, that sir was undone in the contribution of Jerry Brownlee.
Can I just remind members that this debate is a very narrow one, and it's the reasons why we need to go back. And I really want to refer members back to Speaker's Rulings 81(1), which says this is a procedural motion and it is a narrow debate. The only matter under debate is whether the committee should have the power to examine and adopt the supplementary order paper. Members cannot debate the content of the amendments. They're tabled for members to have a look at. So just to sort of remind the member that it is a very narrow debate, and it has to be the reasons why we need to go back. I call the honourable member Dennis O'Rourke.
Speaker, what I was saying about the reason for us having to go back is because what we have already debated has been called into question in terms of whether what the Prime Minister claims the bill says and what it does say are the same thing. And that's the uncertainty that I refer to, because the Prime Minister has said in the House today that the bill says certain things, especially with regard to Section 15B and Section 8A concerning the purposes of the bill. That's introduced a high level of uncertainty, I believe, and anybody watching this debate in the public would have not had any confidence that the national government actually does know what this bill says, and yet they have accused the opposition of not understanding the bill, and I think the reverse is the case. That level of uncertainty means that this motion is what we should be passing today so that we can deal with exactly those issues. And, Mr. Speaker, a second issue is this. There has been concern expressed in the public, even by those who purport to support this bill, about the process for the passing of this legislation, if indeed it does pass. And that would be allayed significantly if this House were permitted to look again at Part 1, which is the substance of this motion and is the substance of the bill as a whole. I believe that the people of New Zealand want to hear this Parliament look again at Part 1 so that we can make good law which is certain and which the people of New Zealand at least understand whether they support it or not. And finally, Mr. Speaker, what harm would it do for this House to take another hour or two to look at a piece of legislation which has gained significant notoriety out there in the public arena? We need to look at that. The opposition says no, rather the national opposition says no. But everybody in this country does feel that it is legislation, I said the national opposition. The national opposition to us, the Minister's wasting time. The issue is that people in this country want to hear this debate held again because they don't understand this, and we should look at it again for those reasons. Talking rubbish.
Call the honourable member Ian McGolvey.
I move that the question be now put.
Mr. Speaker.
Well, it's a very narrow debate, but I'll take one more.
Thank you, Mr.
Call the Honourable
Speaker.
David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.